Governor Rick Perry shocks many with his comments on marijuana. The staunch conservative says he supports the decriminalization of pot. Perry is in favor of policies like alternative drug courts that offer treatment and softer penalties for minor offenses. He also emphasized that he personally is not for the legalization of pot, but he wants states to be able to make those choices. He said each state should have the right to make its own decision about pot. Decriminalizing marijuana is not something Perry has supported in the past. So does Perry's stance mean Texas could legalize pot sooner than most thought? Joining us live in our newsroom this morning is our legal analyst, Chris Tridico, our news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. All right, this topic already getting a lot of attention on our Facebook and Twitter pages. We'll be reading some of the comments as we go along. And just to be clear, guys, he's defending states' rights. He's not saying he wants pot to be legal, but based on his comments, are more lawmakers likely to jump on board with the idea?
You know, I don't know. Here's the interesting thing, Sally. On October the 13th of last year, we did this story when the Colorado law took effect. And all three of us said at the time, there is no way Texas would ever do this. And here we are just a few short months later, and Rick Perry does shock everyone and says this. This was an interesting week for marijuana smokers. The president came out and said that marijuana is no different than drinking alcohol, which I think stunned a lot of people, admitting that he had smoked marijuana when he was young. The Harris County District Attorney, Devin Anderson, assailed him for that, saying that it was reckless for him to make those statements. And then the very next day, Rick Perry makes the comments that he made, excuse me, and Devin Anderson came back on TV and said, you know, we could decriminalize it, and it was her head was spinning, I think, Mustafa Tamiz. Does this mean that Texas is headed in that direction? Because I think nationwide we're reevaluating marijuana.
You know, marijuana also leads to memory loss. So it would explain a lot about Governor Perry now. And I'm not saying that he smokes pot. Jackie Bally can probably answer that.
Hey!
But look, decriminalization does make a lot of sense. From the standpoint of we spend a lot of tax dollars in putting people behind bars and paying for it for marijuana-related crimes. And so I think it needs to be seriously looked at. I agree with Governor Perry that there should be some effort. And I'm not for legalizing marijuana either, but we need to reassess this policy.
Governor Perry has spent Barack Obama's entire term in office assailing him for not beefing up border security, primarily to stop the drug trade in the United States. And then he comes out and says, let's decriminalize marijuana.
I agree with Devin Anderson's first assessment. What the president said was irresponsible because so many people look up to him. And to say smoking pot is something I did and nothing happens, we all know, studies have shown it's a gateway to other harder drugs. Teenagers always look for something as an excuse, and it's just not something that we want to encourage, and especially as a mother of two teenage boys, I definitely am against it. The fact that the governor said it is states' rights, that doesn't surprise me too much because he has always been pro-states' rights. But I do think that what he's saying is making us think that he's leaning to, in a situation or in a way that he may not be leaning towards. I don't think now lawmakers in Texas are going to be looking at this too closely.
All right, let's go to Sally's monitoring our social media accounts, and there's probably a whole lot of people with forget it,
yeah.
Sally.
we get more comments on this topic, I'm telling you, than most topics. Okay, so here's a couple thoughts. Lorenzo says, legalize it, tax it, bam, problem solved, along with many other problems. Christopher says, I think making recreational smoking legal is an attempt to stop sending out money to other countries to stop the flow of certain drugs to us. So another take on it.
You know, we were just talking about this off the air. Portugal, about 17, 18 years ago, decriminalized every drug. And in the way Rick Perry's talking about right now, it doesn't make it legal to do it, but instead of imprisoning them, they send them to treatment. And crime has dropped overall in that country dramatically.
Well, crime's dropped because the way you define crime is different. A lot of our crime focuses on the drug possession, drug charges. But I think there's one more thing important to look at. It seems like from the Republican side, anytime there's any issue, the very first thing is to attack the president. And the president carried Harris County. Majority of the people have voted for the president in Harris County. And for Rick Perry to attack him continuously and then take the position similar to what he does, giving him cover to be able to say this.
Devin Anderson really made the point that you're making. She attacked the president, and the very next day she supported Rick Perry on opposite sides of the exact same issue.
You know, if we're going to make better public policy, we have to get beyond the rhetoric.
Is it reckless? And this just both of you real quick. Is it reckless for the president and Rick Perry to be talking about decriminalizing marijuana?
Well, there are two different statements. The president said that there's nothing wrong with smoking pot. He's done it, and he's comparing it to alcohol, as opposed to Rick Perry. He personally said he doesn't want to smoke pot. He doesn't say that he wants to legalize it, but he looks at other policy issues with decriminalizing. Those are two separate statements.
Real quick.
They're two separate statements, but they're part of a larger issue, which is how do we deal with marijuana crime? One, on the presidential level, he has to be able to talk about it in a way where other governors can step in and create that conversation in the country.
We're going to have to leave it right there, Sally. And I think what we're seeing here is nationwide a rethinking of marijuana at a minimum.
Yeah, and we're still waiting to see how Colorado is handling all of this, too, as the news develops there. Okay, thanks, guys. We'll see you in our next half hour.
All right.